Americans are traveling to Mexico for Ozempic. So, what do you need to know? Black women, I'm going to share some of the reasons behind this so that you can determine if medical tourism is best for you. So, let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, what is Ozempic? Okay, so Ozempic is a drug that was approved in 2017 for medical use in the treatment of diabetes. Now, there are a few diabetes drugs out there that are being used for weight loss. Ozempic's one of them, but let me explain the differences first. So, Ozempic, you may have heard of also Wegovy or Rybelsus. Those are brand names for a drug named semaglutide. Okay. Now, there are also other popular diabetes drugs that you may have heard of that also assist with weight loss, Mounjaro and Zepbound. Those are brand names for tirzepatide. Now, brand names are simply a drug that's sold by a drug company under a specific name or trademark and then is protected by a patent. For example, Tylenol, that's a brand name for the drug acetaminophen. Okay. So, diabetes drugs aren't just being prescribed for diabetics anymore. They've become so popular from because of people like Oprah Winfrey or other celebrities or influencers to everyday Americans that are willing to spend about $1,000 a month to have to use these medications to lose weight quickly. Okay. Now, in many cases, it's only possible for non diabetics to get their hands on the drugs because doctors and other medical professionals are prescribing them off label. So, what's off label? So, off label prescribing is when a healthcare provider writes a prescription for an FDA approved drug. FDA is Food and Drug Administration in the United States, but for a use that is actually unapproved. So it is a legal practice. Okay. For example, Mounjaro. Mounjaro is only approved by the FDA to help type 2 diabetics control their blood sugar, but doctors can still prescribe it to non diabetics as a weight loss tool. But that's up to that physician and it's up to their discretion. Okay. Now, Wegovy, on the other hand, that was FDA approved for weight management in 2021. The catch here is that the FDA approved the weekly injection for chronic weight management in adults with obesity or overweight with at least one weight related condition. So someone has to have something like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, or high cholesterol, or something along those lines in order to be approved for that medication. Now, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, all of those have been shown to promote weight loss. Anyone who isn't obese or overweight with one of those named conditions that I mentioned will need the doctor to prescribe it off label. Okay, so it can get tricky, which is why many Americans are willing to engage in medical tourism to get their hands on Ozempic because those kinds of things are not monitored outside of the US. Okay, and there's pros to and cons to that. But this is especially important for Black women because Blacks have a disproportionate burden of diabetes. Okay, so Black adults in the US are actually 60% more likely than white adults to be diagnosed with diabetes. And a study revealed that non Hispanic Blacks were found to be twice as likely as non Hispanic whites to die from diabetes. So I want to make sure that you all are educated on your options and that you know and that you're really forthcoming with whatever information or medical history you have if you decide to go down this road. Okay, so if you decide to travel to Mexico for Ozempic, some things you just need to know is that Ozempic, obviously, it's in high demand, which is making the weight loss drug expensive in the US. The popularity of the medical tourism to buy this drug is increasing. And in most cases, the drug is not covered by insurance in the US. So Americans are choosing to participate in medical tourism to get a cheaper version of the drug. So, what are the risks of buying it from Mexico or even Canada or some other country? And what are some of the medical experts actually saying about this? So, I will get into that in a moment. One of the things I think you need to know is the top three reasons, they're not the only reasons, but they're the top three reasons that people tend to engage in medical tourism are accessibility, availability, and lower cost. And I'm going to cover that as we continue to talk about Ozempic. So, cost and supply, let's think about that when it comes to Ozempic. According to GoodRx, Ozempic costs at least $915 a month without insurance in the US. So many healthcare plans will cover the drug for diabetics, but for people who want to take it for weight loss, it's not usually covered. Okay, so this creates a couple of issues, namely some health equity issues, because it actually puts those communities that are unable to afford this medication in a position where they don't have access to something that they should. Um, Now, with Ozempic, some patients aren't just shopping for lower price. Low availability is also a driver for the medical tourism for Ozempic. So, Ozempic first appeared on the US FDA's drug shortage list in May 2023. So, to give you perspective, in Canada, 9% of the 30,000 prescriptions for Ozempic filled across the province each month in 2022 were for US citizens, just for Ozempic. Now, that's 22 times higher than the percentage of prescriptions filled for US citizens for all drugs. Okay. And the 2023 numbers are not yet out yet. So I don't know if there's been an increase, decrease, or any change. Okay. But that's a huge amount of people trying to obtain Ozempic. Now, if approved for weight loss, both Ozempic and Wegovy would require a prescription. The others I mentioned before require prescription as well, Manjaro, Rybelsus, etc. But current prices for the medications are also very similar, with the list prices being about $1,000 a month without insurance. Now, the FDA can also set guidelines on who is eligible for the drug, only approving it, for example, maybe for patients over a certain BMI, body mass index. So they are responsible for setting the guidelines for who is going to be using it in the US. Now, patients with private insurance may be able to get the medicine at a lower cost, but that coverage is not exactly too clear. So there's more to come on that. And if you have private insurance, go ahead, if you're considering it, to at least look into it to see what your options are. Okay. But as its popularity grows, obviously the supply is dwindling. So the sudden popularity of it for weight loss purposes is actually driven in part, believe it or not, by social media. Okay. And it's made it difficult for a lot of diabetic patients to access the drug, and has actually had some celebrities who are diabetics come out speaking against the use of Ozempic and other drugs for weight loss purposes for non-diabetics, because they are having a hard time trying to get the drug for the intended purpose, which initially it was for diabetes, to control it. Okay. Now, with medical tourism and the demand for Ozempic being really high in the US, obviously the availability is low and the costs are high. So remember, I said availability, accessibility, and cost are the main reasons for medical tourism. And medical tourism has become a more popular option in the US, obviously because inflation continues to persist. Many people find it difficult also to receive affordable health care. But sometimes patients also travel because they can get quicker access to some care outside of the US, and someone may also want to seek treatment from a doctor who speaks their language or comes from the same culture. And obviously, cost matters. It saves people money. And believe it or not, in the US, some companies, some employers are now even suggesting medical tourism to manage costs for both the company and the employee. Some employees travel for both procedures as well as prescriptions that are covered by the employer. So, with many people using medical tourism for Ozempic and then they're sharing their experiences, it has made a lot of employers take note. So, for example, one woman went down to Mexico to get Ozempic after it was prescribed to her, saying she was able to purchase it at a Costco at Cabo San Lucas. I mean, talk about availability, at Costco. But she said she didn't have any problems going through customs, security, or TSA. And she actually posted the experience on her YouTube channel. Another example is a TikToker posted about their experience purchasing Ozempic in Mexico, and saying that she gets that question a lot about Ozempic that she got from Mexico, and that she actually had a starter box and that the box cost her $285. I mean, $285 versus 1,000 a month, you determine what would work best for you. But besides Mexico, some of the other common destinations for Ozempic or for other medications on a whole are people tend to travel to Canada, India, and also Thailand. Okay. But care in countries like Mexico can actually be more than 50% cheaper than it is in the US. So the medical tourism industry has surpassed $70 billion dollars. And this was before the onset of the pandemic. This is inclusive of not only expenses related to the medical procedures, but it is inclusive of transportation, inpatient stays if it requires one, and accommodations. So it looks like a really great alternative if you're having difficulty in the US with healthcare on a whole. But one with everything, there are pros and cons. You know, you have to weigh the risks of medical tourism. So you as a patient should take steps to decrease risks of receiving care in another country using medical tourism. And you can do that by, first of all, the most important thing you need to do is be concerned about quality and safety over cost. Okay. You know, a lot of times people are taunting, oh, it's much, much lower than the US, etc. That may be true, but make sure that the quality and safety is there as well. Okay, because your health is of the utmost importance, or it should be to you. But ensure that you research the facility where you plan on having or receiving your care. And I don't mean just the exact location, also the surrounding areas. And Mexico in particular has a lot of towns on the outskirts where they may not necessarily, they're border towns and they may not necessarily be too safe. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the exact location, whether it's a clinic, hospital, whatever it may be, for your safety. Okay. And you can Google the facility to find out basics. And I also suggest you just look into whether the facility is accredited by the Joint Commission International. And I'll leave their information in the description. But the Joint Commission is actually a US based nonprofit organization that accredits more than 22,000 US health care organizations, clinics, programs, etc. And their international branch, the Joint Commission International, or JCI, they actually accredit and certify healthcare organizations abroad for healthcare quality of care and patient safety. Okay. JCI is the industry leading international accreditation body. It's trusted globally across diverse care settings. Anywhere you receive care or care is delivered, JCI is there, and they will grant accreditation or certification. Okay, if they've achieved it. All right. So if your facility is not accredited by the JCI, I would actually check whether they have any partnerships or affiliations with reputable universities or facilities. If they do, wonderful. They tend to have mechanisms in place and protocols in place that to ensure your safety and the quality of care. If they do not, I would reconsider and search for a facility that is JCI accredited. At least this way you can rest assured that you're receiving the highest quality of care. Okay. Also, you will want to determine if you will work through the facility directly to coordinate your care, or work with a medical tourism facilitator or concierge. Now, if you decide to coordinate on your own, I just suggest that you go to Patients Beyond Borders website, and I'll leave their information in this description as well. But international hospitals and clinics recommended by Patients Beyond Borders must meet stringent criteria to be listed by them. So you have two resources, the JCI and also Patient Beyond Borders. I would check on both. Okay. Now, if you decide to use a medical tourism facilitator, you may be asking, what exactly is a medical tourism facilitator? So, a medical tourism facilitator, they can help patients navigate healthcare in a foreign country. Okay, the best medical tourism facilitators are actually trained professionals with a deep understanding of medical treatments. They don't have to be in healthcare. They do not have to be nurse, physician, etc. But they're trained professionals with a deep understanding of medical treatments and procedures, as well as the medical providers and their health systems in their home country or in a region, and they specialize in that. Now, they help foreign and sometimes even domestic patients select healthcare providers, and also assist in every step of medical travel planning, from booking appointments to post procedure care if you're going to have a procedure. The benefit of having a medical tourism facilitator is that you'll find that it's more affordable. There's high quality care because they're vetting or going through the vetting process for you, and can be arranged with minimal headache and hassle to you. Okay, now a medical tourism facilitator is the intermediary between you as a patient and the provider, and they can assist with not only provider selection, but travel planning, as I mentioned, healthcare system navigation, things like negotiating your prices, drafting any agreements, translation if you're unfamiliar with the language, and in many cases, also translating appointments and documents for you. So they are the communication bridge between you and the medical providers or the hospital or clinic facilities. Now, some benefits of working with a facilitator are prevention, obviously, because a facilitator will ensure that all your travel, medical, and legal requirements are completed and organized prior to you even leaving your home country. They vet the facilities and the doctors in advance, also their experience and their familiarity and relationship with some trusted providers not only improves the likelihood that they'll recommend the best fit for you, but they can often secure some spots that are otherwise booked on schedules and negotiate, obviously, the best prices for you. So, this coupled with improved communication and emergency support are added benefits to you if you decide to go down that road. Okay. Now, what are some of the medical experts saying about this whole U.S. Residents going to Mexico for Ozempic? Because of the popularity of Ozempic remains high, obviously they have to address it. It comes with some serious potential side effects that they want to ensure every patient knows, because you can certainly go off out of country where some of the regulations are not the same regulations as you adhere to in the US. So, what you need to know is that there's some patients that are reporting some common side effects that you see with any medication: nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Okay, but there's some more serious or dangerous side effects that can be fatal, and they are associated with Ozempic for weight loss. They've been reported, and they are uncommon, but you still need to know about it. One of those things is pancreatitis, okay, and that's in infection of the pancreas, essentially. But essentially, with pancreatitis, the symptoms may include things like severe abdominal pain that can radiate from your back and also cause you nausea and vomiting. So, if you decide to take this for weight loss purposes and you have some of those side effects, you really need to seek emergency care. All right. Also, there have been reports of thyroid tumors and cancer developing after the use of Ozempic. It's not fully understood. It's still murky because there have been a lot of tests, and some of those tests have been with animals, and they're going through tests to see what the risk is to humans. But there have been some that have been reported, and there's more to come on that because they just don't have enough samples to say conclusively that it was from Ozempic. Okay. Also, acute kidney injury. Now, this is in rare cases, but some of those symptoms might include decreased urination, swelling, or difficulty breathing. If you encounter any of that, if you're deciding to take Ozempic for weight loss purposes, seek immediate medical care. Okay, do not delay. Also, hypoglycemia, and it may seem like, oh yeah, of course it's going to be hypoglycemia. It's a diabetic drug. So diabetics take the drug to control their blood sugar to make sure it's lower because they have really high blood sugars. But while it is primarily used for diabetes treatment, when it's used for weight loss, those individuals without diabetes, or if they're not taking other diabetic medications, Ozempic can actually lower your blood sugar levels, leading to hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. And this can cause symptoms like dizziness, sweating, shakiness, confusion. You may even feel like you're going to pass out. So those are things that you need to take into account as well. And then the last one, which is a big one, gastrointestinal issues. So some of the common side effects that I mentioned with Ozempic, especially when you're starting the medication, include nausea, vomiting. There were some reports of diarrhea as well and abdominal discomfort. But these symptoms usually improve over time for most individuals. But the FDA actually just updated their Ozempic's label amid some concerns that it's blocking intestines in some patients. So the FDA actually revealed that the updated label after they updated their label after a few issues emerged as the drug was has increased in popularity. The label warnings of gastrointestinal disorder, one that's called ileus, and that's a lack of movement in your intestines that can lead to pain, nausea, and other symptoms. So I want you to be aware of that, because if you experience any of that, make sure you seek medical attention right away. Okay. Now, some physicians actually believe that overprescribing Ozempic may be a contributing factor to some of the health problems that are associated with weight loss drugs. Some physicians are saying it's important to understand that the medications do a lot of good, and they're not necessarily bad, but they're also saying if they're used improperly, if they're used irresponsibly, they can be harmful. And they suggest that as these types of medications are released, that medical professionals need to become more responsible in the way that they're used, predominantly those who are prescribing it off label, making sure that they are closely monitoring those who are not diabetics who may be taking it. So, generally, conversations also about weight loss in general, they focus on lifestyle modifications, things like, exercising, eating healthier, all of those things, because once you stop taking the medication, if you've not made any of these lifestyle modifications, you will gain the weight back, and in many cases you will gain more than you actually lost. So if the drugs are used properly, some experts say that it could even help mitigate the US obesity epidemic. I mean, I don't know, but I do think that it's important that if you decide to use it for weight loss, that you are ensuring that you change your entire lifestyle so you do not have to take this medication forever. Okay. So ultimately, you owe it to yourself to take your time to research the options that are best for you and your situation. This means do your due diligence when researching physicians, their credentials, their training, the facilities. Also, ask questions, and make sure that you are completely honest about your own health history so that you have the best outcomes. Seek out social media groups where you can ask questions about the facilities, clinicians, and experiences of others who may have received care from where you're thinking about going. And also, I just hope this was helpful. Let me know your thoughts. Would you travel abroad for Ozempic or any other medication that was difficult to access in the US? Let me know in the comments. Also, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if this type of content is of interest to you, and hit the notification bell so you're notified when I post the next video. Until the next time, be well.